In the exercise lunging for respect stage 1, we're basically sending the horse away from us out into a circle, yielding their hindquarters and having them turn and give us 2 eyes, and then sending them out the other direction. Okay? Point. I want the horse to leave with an energetic departure. As long as my belly button is behind the string on her neck, which is the drive line, the horse should keep going forward. I'm going to yield her hindquarters, there. Now Mindy comes all the way up to me, that's because I've already got her respect, but you'll see in the next exercise when I work with the next horse, I'm not going to let the horse come all the way up to me, okay? Once the horse is respectful, I don't mind if they do that, but in the beginning I make them stay on the outside of my hula hoop. Now with Mindy, I can refine it to where I'm not exaggerating. I'm just going to look at her hindquarters, there, and she turns and comes in. Want to be able to keep your feet still, back the horse up, point, and the horse leaves. See how much slack is in the lead rope when Mindy's going around? That's what I'm looking for. I don't want the horse to be pulling on this rope. See how much slack? It's almost like you could lunge her without it. And then yield. Good girl. The horse doesn't always have to canter. That's a go. The reason why I work with lunging for respect stage 1 is that, remember, it's called lunging for respect. It's not called lunging to get the horse tired. It's not called lunging to get the buck out of the horse. It's called lunging to gain respect. Okay, because how do you gain a horse's respect? By moving their feet forwards, backwards, left and right, and always rewarding the slightest try. Traditional lunging is where you let the horse go around and around and around, and eventually he gets tired enough where he starts to behave. The problem with this type of lunging is that usually the horse gets fitter and fitter and fitter, and it takes you longer and longer to wear him down to where he'll start to behave for you. Pretty soon you need to go to a horse show like a week early, start lunging, so by next weekend he'll be nice and tired. I'm sure Bo's going to get tired with what I'm going to do to him right now, but my goal is not to get him tired. My goal is to do as many changes of directions as I possibly can. Okay, it's forwards, backwards, left and right. The more I can redirect those feet, the more respect I'm going to get, and the more I'm going to get him to use the thinking side of his brain. So that's the reason why we do it. It's called lunging for respect, because that's what we're trying to accomplish, is respect. Now, before we get started with Bo and lunging for respect, I thought of one more thing I could tell you, that it's a great benefit to gain control of the horse's hindquarters. We're able to engage the hindquarters and get the horse moving away, and then disengage his hindquarters and get him to yield and give us 2 eyes. By sending him away and bringing him back and getting him to give us 2 eyes, we've got good control of that hindquarters, which is necessary to stop the horse wanting to bolt away from us or take off and drag us around if we've got control of that engine, okay? Now today is especially a windy day, and this is where lunging for respect would really come in handy on a cold, rainy, windy day, because you ever notice on windy days your horses are more hypersensitive, aren't they? On cold days they're feeling their oats, they like to buck and kick their heels up, and they're feeling kind of frisky. So on cold, rainy, windy days, usually your horses are a lot more reactive, okay? So this is a good exercise to do when your horse is fresh and kind of feeling his oats before you go to get on him. So as a general rule, I'll take my string off again when I start this exercise. Once you're proficient at using the tools and you're comfortable with them and you know what you're doing, then you could leave the string on when you do this particular exercise. But in the beginning, I recommend you take it off until you get proficient with your tools. And the other reason I like to take it off, it reminds people of where that drive line is. You've got to constantly be aware of where that drive line is, because if your body is in the wrong position, you're going to be giving a horse a mixed signal on where you want him to go, okay? So, traditionally speaking, when people lunge a horse, the first thing they try and do is chase the horse's hindquarters, okay? By chasing the horse's hindquarters, the problem is the more you run to the horse's hindquarters, all the horse does is keeps facing with two eyes, and the horse ends up lunging you. Everybody wants to go back to the butt to make the horse go. The key is get the front end for direction, back end for impulsion. So it's steer the car, then put your foot on the gas and make the butt catch up. So it's direction, then impulsion. So the first thing I want to do is drive Bo's front end away. Once I get his front end moving away, then I can direct my energy behind the string, which is the drive line, to make his hindquarters drive from behind and catch up. But it's always direction first, then impulsion. Now what I'm going to do, mate, is I'm going to stand in front of Bo and I'm going to point with my hand where I want the horse to go. Okay, now he's not going to know what this means, then I'm going to back it up with my stick and I'm going to swing my stick 3 times. 1, 2, 3. If he still doesn't move, I'm going to walk forward and apply pressure right on his neck with the stick, and I'm going to drive that front end away. Now how much pressure I need to apply will greatly depend on how sensitive your horse is. More than likely with Bo, because he's kind of hypersensitive type of horse, I'm not going to have to use the stick very aggressively to make him go away. But then again, you might have a big lazy type horse that's pushing, disrespectful and very numb, mentally and physically. You might have to light a fire under their feet. So again, adjust yourself to what the situation needs, okay? The reason why I swing my stick 3 times is I'm giving him 3 chances. 1, 2, 3, okay, karate chop, let's move. I really want a horse to have an energetic departure, that when I say move, yes sir, let's get moving now. If your horse will leave with energy, he'll have energy in the circle, okay? So let's kind of get started here. It's probably not going to be pretty to begin with, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going to point, ask him to go. See how I point up nice and high, and I open up my fingers like that, so that as he leaves, I'll let that rope slide through. The key is you want to always make the okay sign with your hand, then you put the rope between your thumb and your index finger, and then close your hand around it. That way when you point, you'll always be going up in the air like that. Make the okay sign, put the rope through your hand, close it. Don't hold it like that. Always get your hand over the top. If I'm looking down at my hand, my thumb is the closest finger to my chest, my little finger is the closest finger to the horse's halter, or the horse. That way when I point, I just kind of open up my fingers like that and I'll let that rope slide through. Most people want to hold the lead rope like that, with their thumb closest to the horse, their little finger closest to you, okay, the person. And the problem with doing it like that is as the horse goes to leave, you have a tendency to grip onto the rope and not give a horse a chance to go away from you, okay? So as a good rule of thumb, make the okay sign at your horse and then put the rope. And that's what I call put your hand over the top of the rope. So let's get started, mate. I'm going to point up high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the front end. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There it is. Now I'm going to drive my energy behind that string. So kind of Bo ran backwards, didn't he? Kind of ran all over the place. That's very common in the beginning, okay? Notice that I just went back with him. Now a couple of times he started to move that front end away, and I immediately took away the pressure, okay? And then he stopped and faced me again, so I had to apply the pressure. Now my belly button is driving behind that string. Now I don't mind if he just trots around in the beginning. I usually like him to trot around, you know, kind of like a brisk pace, not real slow. If I can, that's fine in the beginning. Now I'm going to let him go around 2 or 3 circles, and then what I want to do is yield his hindquarters and have him give me 2 eyes. Now with Mindy, I could just look at her hindquarters and she would turn and face me. I've got to exaggerate it with Bo because he doesn't know what to do. So first step is I'm going to slide my left hand down the rope. My next step is I'm going to pull my left hand towards my belly button. And my third step is I'm going to take my right foot and with the stick, try to step on the end of his tail. So I'll let him go around again. Slide, stab, yield. Now, as soon as he gives me 2 eyes, then I want to see this resistance in the halter? Then I want to bring him up to the edge of my hula hoop so I can rub him with the stick. So even though I had to tap him with the stick to get him to move, I always want to what? Rub it away. So at this point, now I let him rest for a couple of seconds, take my stick under the rope, always get my hand over the top of the rope. I'll try again. Point, 1, 2, 3, go towards the horse, go towards the horse, go, oh, he went the wrong way. Point, there we go. Yeah, just like that there. Now, in the beginning, they're not going to stay in the middle of the arena, okay? They're going to lean back towards the gate. They're going to go back to the horses in the pasture. Okay, wherever they want to go, just kind of let them get over there and then keep their feet moving. Now, I'm going to keep directing him back to the middle of the arena only because I'm trying to get in front of the cameras to give you guys the best view. But if I was without the cameras, I really wouldn't care where he went as long as I got his feet to move. Eventually, he'll figure out there's no other better place to be than in the middle of the arena with me. So if you're doing this in a pasture, it's okay. Now ready? Slide my hand down, pull it to my belly button, step towards his tail. Now does everybody see why yield the hindquarters stage 2 is so very important? Getting that horse to give you what? 2 eyes. Because if you don't have that exercise really good, when you come to do this exercise, it'd be a lot harder, wouldn't it? So I'm going to take my stick under my rope, always get my hand over the top, point, ask him to go. 1 step, 1 chance, 2, 3, there, that was better. That time there, I didn't have to tap him with the stick on his neck. Okay, now what I want to do as the horse is going around, I want to pull and release on the lead rope a little bit if the horse feels like he's heavy on it. Ultimately, I want the horse's nose tipped to the inside of the circle. In the beginning, they'll probably have their head tipped to the outside of the circle. He does that a little bit. So I'll kind of pull and release on this lead rope because I'm trying to create some slack in that lead rope. Pull and release, pull and release. Okay, pull and release. I don't want him to have tension in that line. Now, I'm going to yield his hindquarters, slide, stab, yield. Now he kind of overreacted there, didn't he, and kind of jumped away. Bring him up here, let the rope slide through my hand. There, release it. And then rub him with the stick. Stand in front, point, 1, 2, 3, move those feet. This is going to be a great exercise for Bo because he's been pretty reactive up to this point. And we're sure we've moved his feet and yielding the hindquarters and backing him up and yielding the forequarters, but we haven't really got his feet really moving forward that much. This is going to get him a lot quieter. Slide, stab, yield. Now remember Mindy, I let her come all the way up to me. I don't want him coming all the way up to me. I want him to stay on the edge of the hula hoop until I've got him respectful and thinking. Feet still, 1, 2, 3, there. Now I actually like the way he jumps away as far as he's energetic about it. He's trying to put some effort into it. Now in the beginning your horse might canter around, especially kind of on a windy day like now. See how he just stopped? I'm just going to keep applying pressure there until he moves his feet. Now did you notice that I didn't try and stop him from stopping? He committed to the mistake and then I made him feel uncomfortable by applying pressure. Now notice that he's really pulling on this halter here, isn't he? So see how I pull it and release it? I'm going to shorten up, pull it and release it. Pull it and release it. Pull it and release it. That's why I like to use these halters because it makes it uncomfortable for the horse to lean on the halter. Pull it and release it. Pull it and release it. I'm going to yield again. Now I would like him to walk up to me. If I have to walk backwards, I will, to encourage him to come up so I can rub him with the stick. This is his reward for giving me 2 eyes. Take my stick under, point, 1, 2, 3. Pull and release. If you give a horse something to lean on, that's exactly what they'll do, they'll lean on it. When he stopped before over there, a lot of people would have ran to his hindquarters to get him to go. Remember, it's always direction first. Get that front end moving. There we go. I like a bit of slack. Slide, stab, yield. Now, like that. See how he came forward without me having to pull on him? Good boy. So this is a pretty simple exercise. I'm driving the horse away from me in a circle. I'm yielding his hindquarters and getting him to give me 2 eyes. He's coming up to the edge of my hula hoop so I can rub him with the stick. Point, 1. So he leaves to the left considerably better to the right than to the right, doesn't he? Okay. Pull and release, pull and release, pull and release. Don't give him something to lean on because that's what he'll do. Pull and release, slide, stab, yield. Now I want it, oh, I like that. See, that time I didn't really have to pull on him to get him to come up. Now once I've got his respect, then I'm going to want him to come up just like Mindy did, come up all the way up to me. 1, 2, 3, come on, move. Now that time I had to run into him to encourage him to move. And that's very normal in the beginning. If you swing 3 times, you have to start walking towards him to get him to move. Now sometimes the horse will just run backwards. If they run backwards, just keep following backward, run after him. Keep chasing that front end until it moves. Now I'm going to make him stop by accident. Let's just say he stopped. What most people would want to do is run around here to the butt. Go to the forequarters. Even though he ran the wrong way, there we go. Go to that forequarters. Slide, stab, yield. See that drag on that halter? That's what we need to, see this drag? That's what we've got to get rid of. Every time he comes up, I always rub him with the stick. Point, there. Now that time I thought about picking up that stick and he already started moving. Pull and release, pull and release, pull and release, pull and release. Yield. There we go. One, 2. That's it. You see how I let that rope slide through my hand? And now I might go back and shorten it up a little bit. As a general rule, you want the end of it just kind of touching the ground there, okay? If you let them get too far away, like I'm going to let him get right out the end, if you let them get too far away when you're first teaching them, they'll have a tendency to stop and face you and change directions before you ask. Then again, I don't want them too close to me in case they go to kick me. Slide, stab, yield. Come on, come. If I have to walk backwards, I will. So he's got quite a bit of resistance on the back of his head with that halter. Point, there. I actually like that takeoff a little bit better. He left, but he didn't jump away real scared looking. Now he constantly wants to lope and pick up the wrong lead. I don't really worry too much about that. He'll figure that out as time goes by. What I do want to do is keep knocking him off this halter if I feel him pulling on it. Now if you pull and release and the horse stops, like that, perfect cue, drive that front end again. Pull and release. Slide, stab, yield. See this resistance? There. He's got to learn to come off this. There, pressure. He's got to learn to come off this. Watch this pressure, watch. There, release. Come off this. There, release. Good boy. So if he was tied up to a post, what would he be doing? He'd be pulling back, wouldn't he? Point, 1, 2. I'm eventually trying to get it that I never have to pick up the stick. As soon as I point, he immediately leaves. Now, do you notice that my belly button is kind of facing his head and neck? I'm driving him away. A lot of people want to have their belly button face the horse's tail. Okay, I'm driving that front end away. Now I'm going to direct it towards his tail. Slide, stab, yield. Come on up here. See this pressure, release? Watch how my hands There, my hands quickly open, don't they, when the horse gives. Point, 1. So he picked the wrong direction, but that's all right, he figured it out then. So a pretty simple concept. Send the horse away, bring the horse back. Send the horse away, bring the horse back. Send him away, yield, bring him back. Now what a difference that one was. Did you notice that that time I didn't have to pull on him at all? He came off that pressure by himself. Now rub him when he comes up here. A lot of people do this mistake. They make this mistake is they step around the horse like that. Remember, whoever moves first loses. So you don't want to do that. If I'm going to send him away, I want to try my best to keep my feet still and drive him away. If your horse is making you move, it means he's getting your respect, okay? We need to get him to give us his respect. Pull and release, pull and release. I want to see some slack in that line. Pull and release, pull and release, pull and release. That's why I hate conventional webbing halters, because all they do is encourage your horse to drag and lean. There we go. Don't let him look around. Point, 1, there we go. Now if the horse slows down too much or is not moving forward enough, the cue to make him go faster is I'm going to point with my arm up and ask him to go, just like in the round pen. If he doesn't go, I cluck, and if he doesn't go, I spank. See, that's the advantage of doing the round pen first, is that if I've already done this lesson in the round pen for 3 or 4 days with him loose, he already has a pretty good idea that when I point, it means what? Move away. Point, cluck, and then spank. There we go. Now, in the beginning, I don't really encourage him to lope that much. I'd rather him just trot. If your horse is just kind of tearing around, now see how here, how he just kind of went off the other way? Yield that hindquarters. Now I'm going to send him back to the left because he was kind of 1, 2, he was anticipating going off to the right. So whatever my horse wants to do, I do the opposite. Slide, stab, yield. I'm going to do that again, send him off to the left. 1, 2, there. Slide, stab, yield. So you notice that I'm not doing a lot, I like that there. I'm not doing a lot of circles, I'm doing lots of changes of direction though. The circles just separate the turn. The more you let the horse go around and around, the more they ignore you. So I don't like to go around 2 or 3 circles at the most without some sort of a change of direction. Come on up here. Good boy. Rub his face. Wrong direction, my fine friend. There we go. So if they mess up something, do it 2 or 3 times. There we go. Point again. 1, 2, there. Now you notice now he's trotting around a lot more relaxed, isn't he? He's not trying to run and he's not pulling on me quite as much as what he was before. Yield. Excellent. Now with Mindy, I didn't really have to step, did I? I just kind of looked at that hindquarters. He doesn't know that. We've got to exaggerate it for Bo to understand. There we go. I like that he's starting to drop his head down a little bit more and relax. Slide, stab, yield. Bring him up. So we've got some resistance to fix there. So you know what I'd say? I'd say that's a good place to quit him. He's licking his lips, he's calmed down. He started out initially using that reactive side of his brain, didn't he? And then after we've done this for 10 minutes and changing directions, he's starting to lick his lips and use the thinking side. Is he perfect? Not at all, but for his first lesson, pretty good. I think he understands the concept. What I'm going to do is build on this every day until eventually I can just point and he'll immediately leave. Okay, and I'm not going to have to reinforce it with the stick. Good boy, he did great. It's very important in the beginning, mate, that you always point up high in the air. Okay, what a lot of people do is they'll end up pointing down kind of low, or they'll point up a little bit. Really over-exaggerate it to your horse. Hurry up, go that way, quickly, move your feet. Okay? A lot of people don't exaggerate to teach. Remember, horses are like little kids. You've got to exaggerate it to teach them, and as they understand it, then you can start to refine it. So get that hand nice and high, and as you point, I kind of point with my little finger, so that way that rope just slides through that hand as they go out in the circle. Don't make the mistake of holding the rope like this with your palm up, because what happens is when you end up pointing, this is what people do. The horse goes to leave and they grip onto the rope and they don't let the rope slide through their hand. Watch the difference. When I point, if he'll cooperate here, there, see how I let that rope slide through that hand just then? That's the difference. When you hold it the correct way, you're almost guaranteed to let it slide. 2 eyes, please. Release. There we go. There we go. That's the boy. So don't hold your hand wrong on the rope. Always get it so that your little finger is closest, so when you point, it just slides through, just like that. Yield. That's a boy. Good boy. It's really common in the beginning for people to actually walk around their horse when they're going to send the horse off. They'll step around to get the horse to move. And eventually you can get them to lunge, but the trouble is you did all the moving. Yield. What I want to do is get my horse to do the moving. So I'm going to point and get him to move his feet. Whoever moves first loses. That's the #1 rule in horsemanship. Whoever moves first loses. If you can get their feet to move without your feet moving, you'll gain their respect. If they get your feet moving first, you lose a little bit of respect. It's that simple. It's very important when you're asking the horse to leave and you're swinging the stick, let your whole arm go around in a big circle. Remember like when you spank the ground? You rotate at the shoulder. A lot of people want to use it kind of like a buggy whip, and they'll kind of flick it like this or swing it around like, use your whole arm. When you use your whole arm, you're much more effective and the horse catches on far quicker. Yield. That's a boy. When the horse is lunging, 1, 2, 3, it's very, very important to keep your body behind that string, that drive line. Because if you start getting in front of that drive line, see what happens? You're giving him a mixed signal. You've got to stay behind it, as that's the cue to keep moving forward. Behind the string is gas pedal or clutch. In front of the string is steering wheel or brake. So if you get in front of it, they'll soon tell you, slides, stab, yield. That's the boy. Excellent. Once he realizes that every time he yields, I'll come up and rub him and give him a little rest, he'll start getting keener and keener about coming forward. This is a big problem I see people do at clinics, is they'll always have their hands out like this. They'll keep nagging the horse to keep going. See, if my arms are pointed out here and I'm stretched out, that's a cue to go faster. But if I leave my arms like this the whole time, or if I'm constantly nagging with the stick the whole time, or I'm constantly pointing the whole time, eventually it means nothing. So once the horse is going where I want, I go back to what we call a neutral position. I bend my elbows and I just keep my arms beside me. If I want him to speed up, point, cluck, swing that stick. Okay, now I'm going to drop my arm down once he goes the speed I want. I'm not going to keep nagging him either with pointing or with the stick. Yield. That's a boy. Excellent, good boy. As a safety factor, mate, make sure, point, I like that. When I point, they already leave by themselves. As a safety factor, don't have the horse lunge a real tight circle around you. Because if he would go to kick at you, or you asked him to speed up and he retaliated and bucked or kicked or did something silly, he's going to kick you in the face. He's way too close to me, so drive the horse away from you. I want to have it so that I cannot touch that horse. If I can touch that horse, I'm going to swing that stick and karate chop his butt or whatever part of his body's closest to me and drive him away. Now, if the horse is really disrespectful and would try to kick me, I would for sure use the string on the end of the stick so I could reach him better. Okay? Yield. That's it. So it's very, very important not to let the horse get too close to you. Point. Oh, I like that. As soon as I pointed, he left. And not only that, the closer you get to him, usually the people keep nagging him more. And usually it's that fat, lazy type horse, which is the kind of horse that would kick you in the face if you asked him to speed up. Slide, stab, yield. Now the opposite, of course, of having them too close would be having them go too far away. Some people have a tendency to do that as well. If you first start lunging them and you let them get way away from you like this, it's what most horses will do. I'll have to kind of make him do it, but they'll stop and change directions and you didn't even ask the horse to do it because you're giving them too much play out here. You're giving them too much room. As a general rule, I would say have your lead rope so that the end of it's touching the ground. Maybe even the first 6 inches of the lead rope are dragging on the ground, somewhere in that range. Some of this depends on, you know, how big your horse is, how long your arm is, but that's just a general guideline. Now see how he's a tad bit close to me here? Wiggle, 2 eyes please. There we go. He's got to stay on the edge of my hula hoop. Wiggle, that's the boy, good boy. Point. So now we're starting to put some of the exercises together, aren't we? Kind of like combinations. Yield the hindquarters, back up, move the forequarters, yield. Now I like that. See how when he yielded, it kind of started to look like Mindy, didn't it? He yielded and came in. Now even though he didn't come in too close, which is good, I don't want him to walk all the way up to me like Mindy did, but he did come up to me so I could rub him with the stick. Once I know I've got Beau's respect and I've got him using the thinking side of his brain, then usually that takes 3 or 4 days. Then I'll let him come see he's a little hesitant, all the way up to me so I can rub him here. So I want my horses to come up close, but not until I've got them respectful. Wiggle, there. 2 eyes. Remember what I said, when you teach your horse something, that's all they want to do. So now if I put any pressure in front of him, he thinks it means lunge. He's got to learn the difference in cues, and he will. It just takes time. It's just repetition and consistency. It's important, mate, when you go to yield the horse's hindquarters, you step with the foot or the side that's got the stick in it. For example, he's going around to the right. The 3 steps are, I'm going to slide my right hand down the rope. I'm going to pull that rope to my belly button, okay? Pull that rope to my belly button. And then with my left foot, because I've got the stick in my left arm, I'm going to take a big step towards the end of his tail. Act like there's $1 million dragging on the end of his tail, and I need to step on it. So look how I exaggerate it. I'm going to slide, stab, and then step. And I kind of point with that stick as well. Now again, we're exaggerating, aren't we? We don't do this forever, but this is to teach the horse to move that hindquarters. Point. Now I like what just happened there. Did you notice that Bo went the wrong way, and then he realized he went the wrong way and corrected himself, and I didn't have to correct him? That's what I call a nice problem to have. He corrected himself. Slide, watch my right foot. Step. There we go. So now all the exercises are starting to tie together. A lot of people want to hold the stick like this, like a ski pole. And the problem is you're very ineffective with the stick when you hold it like this. Or what they'll do is they'll hold it correctly, and then right when they go to yield, they kind of mess it up, and they'll change their hand on the stick like this, and then kind of move it like that. You see how stupid that looks, okay? You've got to hold it correctly. Always hold the stick. Unless you're doing the marching exercise, backing up, you should always hold it like you're shaking somebody's hand, okay? Now when I go to slide my hand down, look what I do. I grab the end of the rope with this hand. So I just grab it. I don't change my hand on the stick. Look, I just grab it like that. Now I slide. Now I step. Just like that. Oh, I like that. See how he came forward? That's really good. Good boy. Rub him here and reward him. Some people have a tendency to just pivot as the horse is going around them. Okay, they'll just stand still and pivot like this. Now eventually I will lunge him without moving my feet, but I don't like to do this in the beginning. Now he's still doing good, but if you do this in the beginning, horses will have a tendency to stop more because you end up getting in front of that drive line. I want to walk like a 10-foot, 12-foot circle and be driving that horse away. By walking a circle, I'm constantly driving the horse away from me. I'm driving him away. Slide, stab, yield. That's a boy. Good boy. This is a common exercise too that people do wrong, or common habit that people do, is when they want the horse to face them, instead of driving the horse's hindquarters away, they kind of do this. They just pull the horse's head towards them. Now technically he did face me with two eyes, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get it to where we drive the horse's hindquarters away. Watch the difference. I'm going to drive the hindquarters away. Because remember, we're practicing for the day that we don't need the halter and lead rope, that we can bring our horse out here and do a whole liberty pattern without the halter and lead rope. So we got to practice driving that hip away. That's why Indian deers, when I look at their butt, they turn and give me two eyes. That's what's very, very important. But if you just pull the horse in, it doesn't work. They'll do it like this too. They kind of do it different ways. Is the horse will go around and then they'll slide and just look at the horse and pull it in like that. Think about driving the hip away. The better you can exaggerate what you want from the horse to do, the easier it is. It really exaggerate that yield in the first couple of lessons by really stepping and driving that hindquarters away. Just like we do, remember? One, it's the same action, isn't it? Later on, we're not even going to move. We're not even going to pick up the stick. We're just going to look at it, and the horse will turn and give us two eyes. But exaggerate the teach and refine as the horse understands. It doesn't take very long, 3 or 4 days, and you'll get to a point where if you just look at it, watch. See how he already started to catch on? It wasn't a great yield, but he did start to catch on. Come on off this, please. There, that's the boy. You don't want your horse to get really lazy in the circle. If they're just jogging around, they just kind of zone out to you. I want them trotting like they're trying to go somewhere. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. When you just let them just jog around like they're in a coma, like they're jogging to their own funeral with no enthusiasm whatsoever, they're just faking it. You don't really know how respectful a horse is until you ask their feet to move. It's amazing how many horses I see at clinics, they'll lunge a circle and they'll do this little bitty jog and they look all happy. And then you point, cluck and swing the stick and say, hey, move your feet out. Oh my goodness, the whole demon comes out then. Then they kick up with their back legs and they drag you all over the arena. It's kind of like you woke up the sleeping giant, okay? Get those feet hustling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want them stepping with some spring in their step. They don't have to be galloping around. I don't want that at 1,000 miles an hour, but I do want them to move with some hustle. This can be a common problem in the beginning, as a horse wanting to rear up instead of moving away from you and going the other direction. Usually, again, the horses will rear because they're trying to intimidate you, the owner, into backing off the pressure. What I don't want you to do is try and stop the horse from rearing, and I don't want you to run away from him either. I want you to be kind of in the middle, neither one. You're not a wimp and you're not a barbarian. What I would recommend you do is, if the horse really is rearing up, stand back a little further, point up high, and just keep swinging your stick with rhythm, okay? And keep the pressure on. It doesn't matter how many times he goes up and down, keep swinging that stick. Now, if he's rearing up and striking out, you might want to connect your string onto your stick so you can stand back here further and use the string and kind of whip him on the neck with the string with motion, okay, with rhythm, until he ends up moving away, okay, moving that 4/4 away. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, when the horse is rearing, just stand back and keep applying the pressure and wait for him to move his feet. It's very difficult for a horse to rear up and down. So if your horse rears up and down for 30 seconds, you'd be amazed how they're out of air. Okay, I want to get the horse to where, man, he really just realizes that moving when I point is far easier than hopping up and down the ground. So stand back further. As long as you're back far enough, you're not in any danger of getting hurt or struck or anything like that. If you think you're too close, put the string on your stick, but don't use it like a buggy whip. Everything's always forward and around. Swing that whole arm like that. Another reason why I take the string off in the beginning, unless it's a real problem horse, is that most people, when they're swinging the string, they don't have enough coordination and they end up swinging the string, and the string gets wrapped around the rope, and then they have to untangle the rope for 30 seconds, and they spend more time untangling themselves and their tools than what they actually do moving the horse's feet. So that's what I tell people: get comfortable with moving the tools, and then you can add the string to it, and it's pretty easy equation at that particular point. Good boy. If your horse won't disengage his hindquarters, point 1, come on, move away. If your horse won't disengage and give you 2 eyes, some horses, what they'll do is they'll run faster. When you slide, stab, step, instead of turning and facing you, they run faster. If that happens, just repeat it. Slide, stab, step. I'm going to act like you did the wrong thing and just kept going. Okay, and I'll repeat it again. Slide, stab, step. If he kept going, slide, stab, step. But do you see what happens is that he ends up getting close. I end up getting closer to him every time I slide my hand down the rope. So eventually, if I get close enough, I'm going to whack him on the butt with a stick, just like in Yield the Hindquarters Stage 2, and to get him to give me 2 eyes. Now, this is usually a problem if you don't have the hindquarters disengaged really well. I need to get it so that if I look at that hindquarters, okay, I block him here if he tries to turn in front of me. I need to get that hindquarters to where it yields. I'm holding the stick up here so he doesn't bring his front end through. There we go. Get that hindquarters better. So you may have to go back and do Yield the Hindquarters Stage 2 for a few minutes and then come back to the lunging. But basically, slide, stab, step. Doesn't work? Slide, stab, step until you get close enough that you can step and whack him on the butt. If your horse wants to race around and canter around in that circle and go really fast, do lots of changes of direction. The more you change directions, the more you'll slow his feet down and get him to listen to you and use the thinking side of his brain. So you might only lope half a circle and stop him. Turn, half a circle, stop, half a circle, stop. Keep doing lots of changes of direction. Keep getting in his way mentally and physically until he learns to slow down and relax. Don't let him just zing around there, around and around and around, because then they usually get harder and faster all the time. More changes of direction will calm the horse down. Now initially, the more changes of direction might stir him up, but you've got to keep doing it until he uses the thinking side. Sometimes things get worse just before they get better. So that's what I mean by sometimes they might speed up more if you keep changing directions for a couple of minutes, and then they'll calm down really quickly, but they might get worse initially. If you point and ask the horse to lunge and he just runs backwards, try your best to keep your hand up in the air, keep pointing, and just keep swinging your stick with rhythm and walk right towards his head and neck. Or sometimes, depending how fast he's backing up, you may have to run towards his head and neck. See, a lot of horses play that game, you can't touch me, where they'll run backwards away from you and say, oh, I bet you can't touch me. Well, I bet if you run in, I bet you say, I bet I can if I move my feet. The biggest tendency people have a tendency to do is as the horse is going backwards, they'll try and stop him by pulling down on the lead rope. Keep that hand up high. Regardless of what the horse is doing, don't pull down. Point up high and drive. Get ready. Get ready. This is a perfect example. He's running back there. See how I kept my hand up high? Keep pointing and telling him where to go. It was bad that he messed it up, but good for the camera as far as perfect example right then. He just did it to me. Let's try it again. Point. There. See the difference? Okay. Yield. That's a boy. It's important, mate, not to let the horse get into what we call a lazy yield, okay? If I point right now, one, move your feet. When you want the horse to yield, I want him to give me two eyes. I'm gonna see if I can get him to do a lazy yield. Like, now, he kind of screwed it up, he did it too good. Let me see if I can put him over here a little bit. Tap him away, tap him away. Let me see if I can get that front end to move away a little bit. Well, if he would, there, that's perfect. Now, I had to kind of simulate all that, but see how he hasn't given me two eyes? He's standing at an angle, isn't he? That's what I call a lazy yield. I want the horse to there, two eyes. Not 1.5, not be at an angle, but two exact eyes on me. So if your horse is giving you a lazy yield, step in there and whack that button. Say, hey, mister, give me two eyes now. Or if you're using the string, you can whack them on the butt with it, like I'll go in like whack, like that, and make them yield and give me two eyes. In the beginning, your horse sometimes will have a tendency to anticipate stopping and yielding. Every time he stops, just chase his front end away and make him go on again. So do more circles and less changes of direction if you think he's anticipating. If he is anticipating, turn him in the least expected part of the circle. Like if he thinks he's always going to yield here, yield him over there and yield him over here. Like today I'm having a bigger tendency to yield the horse's hindquarters in this direction because the wind is blowing so hard. I'm trying to get it so that if I yield him over there, the wind blows in my face and his face and the cameras and so forth. So I'm trying to yield him over there where it blows it away. But typically I'll yield him in lots of different places around the circle. But if we're anticipating, do more circles, less turns. It's common in the beginning when you first start lunging that your horse will resist lunging by backing up towards the gate or running towards the barn or crabbing sideways towards the horse that's tied up on the other side of the fence. Just drift with them. Keep the pressure on and drift with them. And in fact, I'll actually go in the direction they want to go. So if my horse wants to get back to the gate, I'll actually lunge him at the gate. I'll do it right there at the gate. Or if I don't have an arena and I'm trying to do it in a pasture and he's trying to run towards another horse in the pasture, I'll go lunge over there near the other horse or near the barn. Wherever he wants to be, I'll make that uncomfortable by constantly keep moving his feet. Yield, turn, yield, turn, yield, turn. It won't be very long and he'll realize that wherever he tries to go to isn't any better than where he's at right now. So he'll start waiting for you to tell him whereabouts we're going to do this. Then I'm going to bring him back to the center of the arena and let him rest. So I'll work him at the gate, work him at the barn, work him near their buddies, and then take him to the center and let him rest. Doesn't take very long and the horse is quite happy to stay in the center of the arena. You made the wrong thing difficult and the right thing easy. The more you say don't do it, that's exactly what they want to do. Let them do it, pay a price, and then make what you wanted look easy. If your horse ends up kicking out at you with both hind legs when you're asking him to move forward out on the circle, I'd probably go ahead and connect the string on your stick so that you can reach him more and spank him on the butt, okay, and get those feet really moving, okay? So let me just do it here. He doesn't really need it, but I have to kind of show it to you. I don't want to get in close to a horse that's trying to kick at me. Now again, that's the reason why we do the round penning exercises first, is that we've already got that. If we've done the round pen lesson first, we've already got this horse's feet moving pretty fast. We've already got him cantering. We've already got rid of that get lost, you know, I hate you attitude out of him. Well, we should have anyway. That's why we get him cantering. If you just let the horse trot around the round pen, they still might have some of it in them. But if I haven't had a chance to round pen the horse, or I don't have a round pen, I'm going to have to use the string. So I'm going to point. Okay, and right there, and I whip him on his butt. Come on, get moving somewhere. So if I've got a horse that wants to kick at me, I'm going to point, cluck, come on, spank, move those feet. So I can influence his hindquarters from a bigger distance away. I'm going to yield, slide, stab, yield, send him off, point, come on, move those feet. Get those feet moving. Point, get those feet moving. Yield. So I'm not going to let that to see how he didn't yield. Try again. Point. Don't let him lean on that halter now. Pull and release. Don't let him lean on that halter. Slide, stab, yield. Point. Come on, move. So when I want to spark them up and get a lot more reaction out of them when I point, I'll go ahead and put the string on the stick so that way I can reach them from a bigger distance without my feet having to move. Pull and release. Slide, stab, yield. Slide, stab, yield. There we go. He actually handled that pretty well, meaning that I got after him a little bit and said hustle, but he didn't kind of overreact and have a real mental breakdown. Normally, up to this point, if I've got any even remotely aggressive to him, he kind of wigs out. That time he actually hustled and didn't overreact, and that's a good sign. I kind of covered that in the last one, but we'll go over it again. That lazy departure. If I think my horse understands the concept, when I point, he's supposed to leave, but he's kind of like, okay, Clinton, I'm going to make you count to 3, and then I'll reluctantly move off. Then I'm going to change the game a lot more, okay? I'm going to change the rules, which is point, get going now. So watch this. So let me caution you here. This is only if a horse understands what to do, but he's not putting in much effort. This is not a horse that doesn't understand. This is a horse that understands, but is putting in very little effort. So we'll try it again. This is what I'll do. I'll point. Come on, move. Let's go. I'll point. 1001, 1002, get going somewhere. I'm going to yield his hindquarters. Let me bring him up to me here. We'll try it again. 1001, there we go. He said, don't even bother with 1002, I'm already moving, okay? So that's how I go ahead and spark them up if I feel like they're not getting sparked up a little bit by themselves. And then I've got to go rub it away. See, he keeps wanting to run off to the right every time I go. See there? I want to, there. I'm going to keep sending him off to the left. If you have to, put 2 hands on the rope if they're really strong. Yield. Oh, I love that. He jumped away straight away. Yield. That was better. So use the stick as an extension. Like here's a good example. He hasn't quite given me 2 eyes, so I can reach there. I can reach that stick down. Kind of overreacted. Let's try again. There, that's better. And then what do? You always come back and rub it away. If you've got a lazier type horse that doesn't really want to move out in the troubleshooting, make his feet hustle with the string and don't do as many stops and turns. Let him go around another lap or 2 to let him think he can go somewhere before you shut him down. If you keep shutting him down every circle, okay, he's mentally going to shorten up. We want to lengthen him. If you possibly can, put him in a round pen, point, cluck and spank, and really get those feet moving in a round pen and get him loping around with some speed, get him moving out. Okay, that's why I love to start my horses in a round pen, because I get rid of all that silliness right from the beginning. Now, Bo only had 1 lesson of it. He should have had 3 or 4 lessons before I moved on to the halter and lead rope. Okay, now I did that deliberately so we could bring him out here and he would misbehave and I could simulate what happens if you don't use the round pen. But I can already tell by doing that 1 round pen lesson, it did help him, because when I pointed and asked him to speed up on that circle, he knew what that meant. Okay, I knew I could get his feet moving. If you've got that real hot, nervous type of horse, it's the opposite. Do more changes of direction. Turn them every half circle. Turn them every quarter circle. I don't care. Keep shutting them down. Stop, turn, stop, turn, stop, turn. The hotter they are and the more reactive they are and the more they want to run, keep changing those directions until they use the thinking side of their brain, and then you can let them go out and do 1 or 2 more circles before you turn them. The best tip I can give you in lunging for respect stage 1 is, remember, it's direction then impulsion. Drive the front end away, then make the hindquarters catch up. Don't go to the hindquarters to make it go before you've got the front end pointed the right direction. That's why when I want him to go, I'm going to point and I really look at him. Point and direct my energy straight at that head and neck and drive him away. Most people, when they're driving their front end away, go back towards the horse's shoulder. I want to aim right behind their jaw. The closer you direct that energy towards their head, the better they'll turn away. The more you direct it towards the shoulder, the more they'll cut you off. Okay, and that actually brings me up to another point is, don't let those horses, when they go past you, cut you off. Okay, when you point, I almost want them to jump 90 degrees and then go around. Don't let the horse just turn and run straight past you, because if you let them turn and run straight past you, they might kick you on the way past. Drive that front end away and then go on the circle. Keep that in mind, that's very important. As far as a time frame, mate, on lunging for respect stage 1, usually by the 3rd day, they've got it pretty good, okay? It's not something that I do every single day, especially once they know what to do, because it'll bore them to death. We have about 60 groundwork exercises you can teach your horses. So the worst thing you can do is do the same thing every single day until they just drive them into insanity. So like I said, I usually do the same exercise 4 days in a row until they're pretty good at it, and then find something new to practice. Now that doesn't mean that I won't come back and practice lunging for respect and check out how it's doing, or if I haven't worked my horse in a few days, come back and do it. But I don't want to drill it on him every single day until he just gets to where he just hates it all the time. Okay, so it's important to add some variety. Remember, consistency is how your horse learns, and variety is what keeps it interesting. If you too much variety, the horse never catches on because you're all over the place like a crazy man. okay? And too much consistency just gets boring to where the horse just is unmotivated to look for something new to do, okay? He's bored. You know, what's the hardest thing when you've been doing the same job for 20 years? Stay interested in doing it because it's the same job, okay? Well, I want to try to keep my horses interested in what they're doing. Using that body language is the key to that liberty. When I just lean forward and look at that hindquarters and he turns and faces me, then I stand up straight. That's a big key ingredient to preparing your horse for the liberty. Remember how I was pulling and releasing on the lead rope, getting that horse to circle around me eventually by himself. Eventually you should be able to stand still and your horse just lunges around you, okay, without any halter or lead rope on him at all. How do you do that? By getting the horse to come off that pressure, by getting him to give you two eyes. It's not that hard to do if you follow from the beginning all the way through to the end of my program. It's not hard to do. I'll show it to you when we get done with this. Now the biggest question people have at this point is they'll say, well, Clinton, how does he know when he's supposed to stand still and ignore the string when you're spanking the ground, and then 10 minutes later you're whacking him for not moving? Through my body language. If I want him to move, I'm going to point and look at him and say, get going, I'm going to swing that stick. If I want him to stand still and relax, okay, I'm going to do this. This is a good example of what I'm talking about. He's confused. He thinks I want him to go. So watch what I do. I'm just going to keep pulling his eyes towards me. I'm going to keep swinging the stick at him. I'm not going to look him in the eye. I'm going to have a real casual body language. And I'm just going to say, hey, you don't need to go anywhere. If I'm not pointing, don't go. If I'm pointing, then you better move. But if I'm not pointing, don't go anywhere. If I'm doing this, there, you better move somewhere. Okay? Better move somewhere. Yield. But if I just walk up to you and I go to swing the stick like this, don't move. See, that was a little better there, wasn't it? He was a little bit confused. So how does your horse get over this confusion? By you being consistent, using repetition. I already told you, when you teach your horse one thing, it's almost like you screw something else up. We started to get him quiet with the string. Now that we've lunged him and got him really hustling, now he's going to think the string's out to get him all the time. Now I've got to come back and say, oh, don't worry about it. Sure, I might have whacked you with it a couple of times. That's because you were being lazy. But look, the string's not here to get you. I'm not here to hurt you. So the horse will figure it out very quickly as long as you do two things for him. You're very consistent, which means if I don't want him to move, have passive body language. I usually stick my hand in my pocket, be real relaxed, don't look at the horse in the eye, just have a couldn't care less attitude. As long as every time I desensitize, I have this look to my body. And when I want him to move, I have this look. Better get going. Better get going. Okay? They will figure it out. And as long as you're consistent and you use what? Repetition. Okay? Now I'm going to walk up to him and flip it over his back again. He says, well, don't you want me to lunge? No, it's all right, Bo. I don't want you to go anywhere. I just want you to stand still. He says, well, I'm a little confused. One minute you're saying lunge, and the next minute you're saying stand still. Let me ask you this. Do kids ever go through school without ever being confused? Of course not. Heck, I spent 15 years confused at it, okay? But it's normal for kids to go through school and have different subjects or different lessons that are confusing for them. How do you get them through that confusion? You keep working with them. You show them repetition. You keep teaching them. You clarify things. You exaggerate. And lo and behold, it doesn't take very long, 2 or 3 days, the child's not confused anymore. Same with a horse. Okay? That's the biggest thing people ask is, how does the horse know? They figure it out by your body language. Right now I've got passive body language. When I want him to move, I've got active body language. And you'll see that he will figure it out very, very quickly. Now, will he have a tendency to overreact sometimes? The answer is yes. Sometimes I want him to move and he really stands still and ignores me. Other times I really want him to stand still and he runs around like an idiot. Will he have times like that? The answer is yes. But that's why we balance, isn't it? Sensitize, desensitize, sensitize, desensitize. You've got to balance the two. If you only sensitize, they end up jumpy. If you only desensitize, they end up relaxed and quiet, but with a bad attitude and they're disrespectful. You've got to balance the two, just like that there. I swung it up and he tensed up and they said, oh man, he's just desensitizing again. Okay? Excellent. So he'll figure it out. Do lots of this. Walking away from your horses, spanking the ground. Having them walk towards you as you move the stick. Lots of this in front of them here. Especially if your horse is a little confused like he is right now. I'm standing in front of him and just flip it over his neck. And he says, well, I don't know, you know, last time I was supposed to move quickly. Unless I'm pointing bow, don't go anywhere. If I say don't go, don't go. Ignore my body, my arms, and the stick, and follow my attitude. That's the boy. Good boy. You're going to find that hot-blooded horses are going to be much easier to get them to move out, aren't they? They're easy to sensitize, but they're difficult to desensitize, and you're seeing that with Bo. If you've got cold-blooded horses, you're really going to have to light a fire under their butt to get those feet moving. So that's where the round pen comes in, to where you can get them cantering. Most fat, lazy, disrespectful horses, it's very difficult to get them to lunge on a lunge line this short because they're so stiff and heavy, they'll just drag you around the arena. And if you put them on a longer rope, now you can't reach them. So then you point, cluck, and spank, and they laugh at you and they, yeah, you're 40 feet away, you ain't gonna get me. That's why the round pen's so handy, because I bet I can make his feet move and I can get to him in a hurry too, okay? But hot-blooded horses, do this after you haven't worked them. If you haven't worked them for a few days and they're kind of frisky and feeling their oats, this is a great exercise to get some of that excess energy out of him. Okay, cold-blooded horses with a bad attitude and are lazy, make them jump away. When you point, yes sir, I want to go. When you yield, yes sir, I want to give you two eyes. Get that snappiness in their feet, that energetic departure. If you let them leave with a real cranky look on their face and they circle around pinning their ears at you, switching their tail, they're kind of hoping you'll die in your sleep, okay? Move those feet. Anytime my horse gives me a sorry attitude, pins his ears, gives me any sort of negativity about moving his feet, I mean, I triple that speed. I light a fire under his butt and say, you haven't got time to be whining, you're too busy moving. Remember your mother saying, if you're gonna whine, let me give you something to whine about? Well, if you're over 40, you'll remember that. If you're under 40, you probably won't. But if you're over 40, your mother used to say, if you're gonna whine, let me give you something to whine about. Well, if you're gonna pin your ears and act snotty about it and not wanna move and you're lazy, come on, hustle, I'm gonna make you gallop around this circle. We'll see how much trotting around, see how difficult that was. And then when you let them go trot back around the circle, the horse is like, man, this is a lot easier than what I just had to do. If my horse gives me an attitude about what I'm asking him to do, I usually ask him to do something that's twice as hard as what I was originally asking him to do for a few minutes. Then I let him come back and do what I originally asked, and he's quite happy to do that. He's like, you know what? This is far easier than what you just made me do. I think I'd like to just keep doing this. I always make what I wanted to originally do look far easier compared to what I made him do. You know, the practical purpose of this, especially with that lazy kind of pin-eared, disrespectful horse, if you get his feet really woke up on the ground, when you go to get on him, you're not going to have a lot of that sorry attitude and that disrespectfulness. That's why at clinics, in a typical beginner clinic, like a fundamentals clinic, a 3-day fundamentals clinic, I won't let people ride the first day. We do nothing but groundwork the first day. And we get these horses' feet moving by doing all these exercises, okay? And then on the second day, we ride. And usually we don't end up with that many problems. But if you start riding your horse when he's lazy and cranky and doesn't want to move forward, that's when they'll start kicking out a lot more and pinning their ears back and having a real bad attitude about it. Now, the opposite would be a horse that's really hot and nervous and reactive like he is. I wouldn't even think about riding him and for a few more days until he's nice and calm and relaxed all the time. If he's a nutcase on the ground, he's only going to be a bigger nutcase when you ride. Don't get on them until they're using the thinking side of their brain consistently. So the purpose is get his feet moving, get his respect, and get him using the thinking side of his brain before you get on. And then when you get on, you shouldn't run into too many problems. But if you get on before you've got that foundation, all those fundamental things in place, you're going to run into trouble, I guarantee you. Gordon McKinley, one of my mentors in Australia, he used to say something to me all the time. He'd say, Clinton, The more times you pick yourself up out of the dirt, the better your groundwork gets. And that means every single time I got bucked off a colt is because I did a poor job of preparing the horse to be ridden. And that is the truth. If you get bucked off or you fall off your horse because your horse is jumpy and spooky, 9.5 times out of 10, it's because you've done a poor job of preparation. It's hurtful for our pride to hear that, but that's reality. Horses always do what we tell them. Okay, so if we don't do a very good job in telling them to be calm and relaxed and listening, they're not going to do it. Okay, let's try one more here. Lunging for respect, okay? You just hold the halter. Okay. So this is lunging for respect, stage 1. What I'm going to do is when I point, I'm going to send you out on a circle, and then I'm going to have you yield and come back and give me 2 eyes. So I'm going to now don't go until I tell you. I'm going to point, ask you to leave. I've always got my hand over the top of the lead rope. Make an okay sign. Put the rope between your thumb and index finger. So I'm going to point. You're not going to move. You're a bad horse. So now I'm going to get my stick, swing it 3 times. 1 chance. 2, you're a little head shy too, aren't you? 1 chance, 2 chance, 3 chance. Now start moving. There. Now I'm going to go towards your shoulder to get, now turn away from me a little bit. There, to get that front end moved away. Now once I get the front end moved away, now I'm going to drive my energy towards your butt to get you to go forward. Keep walking forward. You start the lunge. Okay, go in a bigger circle. That's it. Now as you keep going in a bigger circle, go out there, bigger. Pull that lead. See, as you get away from me, that lead rope slides through my hand. Bigger circle. That's it. Okay. Now we're going around in a circle. Okay. Now when I want you to get you to turn and face me, there's 3 steps, Candace. I'm going to slide my hand down the rope. I'm going to pull it to my belly button, and I'm going to step on your tail. Give me 2 eyes now, otherwise I'll whack you. There we go. And face me more. Got to face me 2 eyes, and then I rub you. Well, actually, then I bring you up to the edge of my hula hoop, and then I rub you. Take my stick under the rope. Always get your hand over the top of the rope. I'm going to point. Now I'm going to give you 3 chances to move. So it's 1. You're a bad horse. Get back over there. You're not going yet. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Get going now. There. And I drive toward your front end. Now do a bigger circle, and you're going to pull that rope through my hand. Let it slide. There we go. So now you're on that circle now. Now when I want to keep walking. When I want you to give me 2 eyes, the 3 steps. I'm going to slide, stab, yield, and you turn and face me. I bring you up to the edge of my hula hoop, rub you, take my stick under, try it again. Point. There, see, you caught on pretty quick that time. As soon as I started to swing, you knew where I wanted you to go, okay? So, the trick is just get the footwork right from the beginning. Now keep going forward, okay? If you get too close to me, I'll whack you, okay? So, now I'm going to get you to give me 2 eyes again. I'm going to keep walking though. Slide, stab, yield. Okay, you come and have a go. Okay. Okay, now I'm the horse. Right out. Get your hand over the top, that's the girl. Stand right there. Now hold your stick correctly. So you point where you want me to go. That's it. Now when I point, I usually kind of point with my hand palm down. I usually kind of point with my little finger like that and kind of let that rope slide, just like that. So you point up high. I'm a bad horse, so you swing your stick 3 times. Now, let your whole arm swing. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Now once you get the 3, if I don't move, you're going to kind of step towards me and direct your energy right up here towards my neck, and then I'm going to turn away. Now as I turn away, I'm going to start walking a circle. Okay. You've got to pull that rope through your hand, okay? Because I'm out on this circle now. Now walk forward in a circle, walk forward and around, okay? Put your arm down. See, I'm already moving, so go back to neutral. Okay. If I'm going around and I'm not being bad, just go back to neutral. Put your left hand beside your hip a little bit. Yeah, just walk forward though. See how you've stopped moving? But stay behind my driver line. You got to stay behind my shoulder. Okay, don't get up in front of my shoulder. Okay, I might have to run to make this work. Okay, now walk a little circle. Now we're going to go and yield now. So slide your left hand down the rope, pull it to your belly button, and then step on my tail. And you didn't use this. There we go. Okay. Remember, it's slide, stab, step. Excellent. Try it again. Okay, point. Point. Okay, leaving. I'm a good horse. I'm trotting out on the circle. Okay, put your arm down once I get going. Now, we're going to yield. 3 steps. Slide your left hand down, pull it to your belly button, and step on. Excellent. Good girl. That was perfect. Bring me up to the edge of the hula hoop. Rub my face. Good girl. I'm a little bit head shy. You keep rubbing until I relax. There we go. Take your stick under the rope. Get your hand on the duct tape. Okay, point. 1. Use your whole arm though. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to start moving away. Let that slide through your hand. Okay, let it slide. Now walk a circle. You're just standing still. Because by walking a circle, you're kind of driving me. Now don't point because I'm already moving. Okay, and don't get in front of a drive line. Now keep walking. Slide your hand down. Stab your belly button and step on my tail. But you should have stepped with your left foot forward. There. Step with your left foot forward. That's to the side. Forward. Okay, let's try this again. That was terrible. Okay, look. It's slide, stab, step forward.
Slide.
And step, yeah,
forward.
Wherever you point the stick, just step towards the
Okay.
stick. Let's keep this simple. Okay, ready? Point. I'm just gonna go, forget it. Okay, rightio. Okay, I'm running around, give me some slack here. Now, put your arms down, quit flying. Once I'm going, go back to neutral. Keep walking a circle. Now slide, stab, step towards the stick. Wrong foot. There we go. Whatever side, whatever hand you got the stick in, step with that foot. Let's try this again.
Okay.
So I'm out in the circle. Give me some slack here. Rightio. Slide your hand down, stab, good girl, step. But you gotta stab your belly button with the rope. Okay, bring me up. Comb the rope, rub my face. Okay, take your stick under the rope. Okay, get your hand over the top. Don't move your feet, get back where you were. Whoever moves first loses. Point. Now, swing. 1, 2, 3, I'm backing up. Keep pointing, keep pressuring me. Now I turn, and that's the goal. You immediately what? Take away the pressure. Put your arm down, I'm moving. Okay, now yield my hindquarters. Slide, stab, step on my good girl. Tail, excellent one. Bring me up to the edge of the hula hoop. Rub my face, get me not worried about stick. Change. Always take it under. Hold your duct tape, get your hand over the top. Point up high, get your stick ready, point. 1, use your whole arm. 1, 2, 3, I'm a bad horse, I'm running backwards, keep pressuring me, keep pressuring me. I turn, and you take the pressure up. Put your arms down. I stop, you pressure, I start moving, okay? Now, I just stopped and faced you and you didn't ask me, so what do? Drive me away, but see how you're already stepping to my butt, aren't you? Get back over there. If I stop and you didn't ask me, what part of my body do you think you should go to? The head and neck. Drive the head and neck away. Remember, it's direction, then impulsion.
Okay.
You did what most people do, is when the horse just stops and faces you, you're already going around in my butt. The butt's the gas pedal. Get the steering wheel first. So point, drive me away. There, drive that front end away. Put your arms down, I'm moving now. Get behind the drive line because you keep confusing me, okay? Now slide, stab, step, good girl. But remember, my tail's over there, I'm a long horse, okay? So exaggerate it back there a little bit. Okay, one more time. Take your stick under the rope. Keep your feet, get back over there. See, you keep stepping around the side. Every time I change directions, you want to step over there. Remember, whoever moves first loses.
Okay.
Point, okay? Now I'm invading your space, whack me away, there we go. Okay, let this rope come through. Now ask me to yield, slide, stab, step. But I'm not listening, so what do? Repeat. Slide, stab, step. So if I ignore you, you just repeat the 3 steps. Slide, stab, step. Change, take it under. Don't move your feet now. Get your, good girl, hold your stick correctly. See, you want to step over there badly, I can tell, it's written all over your face. Well, get me to go over there. Instead of you doing all the work, make me do all the work. Point. Okay, so I head off. Let the rope slide through. Keep your hand up and let the rope slide. And once I get going, put your arm down. Okay, so walk a small circle. Put your arm down beside you. Now slide, stab, step. Wrong foot, step. I'm not listening, so what do? Repeat it. Slide, stab, excellent. Until you can get close enough, if you need to, whack my butt. Does that make sense to you? Good job. Okay, that's great. What I'm going to show you now, mate, is getting the horse how to flex to the halter and lead rope, which is very important to get them to laterally give. I want my horses so light that as I start to slide my hand down that rope, they're already bringing that head around. And I want the horse's nose to come in and touch right where that girth would be. There we go. You see how light Mindy is? It just takes a couple of fingers to get her to give. That's really what I'm looking for, like that. We'll change sides. Anytime I can, I always get my horse to move their forequarters away from me. And then pick up. See the slack that she's putting in that rope? Slide. There, I like that. I want her so light that as I reach down, she's already thinking about giving. That's the kind of lightness you should be craving in your horses. Good girl. The reason why it's important to teach your horse how to flex on the ground is that if your horse is really light and soft and supple to the halter and bridle on the ground, it'll be much easier to get him light and soft and supple on the saddle. If your horse is heavy and stiff on the ground, of course he's going to be heavy and stiff when you're riding him. So I always try to teach my horse whatever I can on the ground so that when I get on him, he already understands the majority of the lesson. When you can teach him on the ground, the horses catch on so much quicker when you actually get on the horse. Have you noticed that how stiff Bo is? Like when he's standing there and I'm flexing him, he's always kind of got his head tipped away from me, and when I pull on the lead rope, he doesn't really want to give. Or when he was going around in the circle, especially to the left, he really wanted to cock his head to the outside and pull on me. I'd like him to circle around me with some bend to his body, his rib bent and his shoulder out and his nose in, hindquarters underneath him. So he's very stiff through his head and neck. I want to get his head and neck to isolate from his feet. I want to teach him how to flex to the halter and lead rope, because that's going to get him a lot lighter. Remember when you pull on the halter? See, his first reaction is to put that head up? I need to get him so that his first reaction is to come forward without moving, without pulling. There, that was better. He needs to realize when that halter's pulled, you got to give to it. If I pull down, there, release, pull down, release, pull down. I'm holding that pressure, release, pull down, there, release, pull down, there, release. If I feel him give, there, release. So he's just got too much tension and he's not yielding to the pressure of that halter above his pole. So that's the reason why we teach them how to flex on the ground, so that when we get on them, it's not going to be a big deal. Now, can you teach the horse how to flex from on top of their back without doing it on the ground? The answer is yes. But the chances of the horse walking around and getting dizzy and falling over, or tripping and falling, or rearing up and flipping over is quite high. Teach them on the ground, they'll understand it on the saddle. Rightio, to begin with it, what I'm going to do is fold my lead rope in half, and I usually place it over the horse's back. What I'm trying to do is get the horse's nose to touch somewhere in here where the girth would be. Now initially, of course, I've got to establish a starting point, haven't I? He's not going to be able to bend his head all the way around. Now, especially depending how old the horse is and how stiff he's been, will depend on how quickly he catches on to this lesson. It's really that simple. You know, if you've got a 16-year-old barrel racing horse that's been roping and pole bending and galloping and barrel racing his whole life, and he's really straight and stiff and heavy and been ridden with a big old curb bit and a tie down, he's going to be pretty stiff. So you can still get him softened up, but it might take you 2 or 3 sessions to really get him light. If you've got a little bitty 2-year-old that's never been taught to pull against people and learn any bad habits, they'll get really light within 10 minutes. It just depends on the individual and the horse's personality, okay? So I'm going to establish a starting point. First of all, I'm going to put my belly button back near the horse's flank. The further back I stand, the safer I am, because when I go to flex him, more than likely he's not going to flex. He's going to back up, he's going to spin in a circle, he's going to stay in there and lean against it. He's going to do anything but flex. If I stand up here near the girth, 2 things happen. I'm blocking where I want him to give, and the chances of him stepping on me with his inside front foot, because I always step back with that foot, he'll end up stepping on my toe. So stand back here. So I'm going to pick up, and I'm going to pull right to where his withers join his back. And he's running away from me, so I'm just going to stay in beside him here as best I can. Okay? Stay in here, 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 Stay in here. Wherever he goes, I go. Stay in here. Very reactive, isn't he? Stay in here. I'm pulling. I'm holding this pressure. He's going to try all kinds of things to get away from me. He's going to back up. He's going to spin in a circle and hope I get dizzy. He's going to stand there and ignore me. He's going to try all kinds of things, and eventually none of it's going to work. And the last thing he's going to do is he's going to stop moving his feet, and he's going to create a little bit of slack in the rope. Just because a horse's head is bent doesn't mean he's going to give. Doesn't mean he has given. Now, I'd love it if the horse would stand still at the angle for the camera to be able to see, but reality is that's probably not going to happen. So I'm just going to hold it here. Hold it here. He's really stiff. I couldn't even try to imagine doing this under saddle. A lot of people say, well, Clint, how do you get your horse to stop spinning around? You don't. You wait for him. And then some lady will say, well, my horse will go around for days. No, they won't. Horses are great at making you think they're going to do something forever. Right now, he's hoping I'm going to get discouraged and quit. I'm hoping he's going to give. Get ready? Now watch this. His head is bent, but he hasn't there. He just created a little bit of slack right then. Okay? Just because the horse's head is bent does not mean he's given to the pressure. He's got to create a little bit of slack in the rope before I release. Let's try it again. Pick up. Get ready. You can't really see from this angle. Get ready. Hold it. His head's bent, but he's still pulling on the rope. There he created a little bit of slack. I'm going to bring him back closer to the center of the arena to see if I can get him to shape up a little bit to where you guys can get a better view of him. But, you know, it doesn't get any worse than that. Like, he's a bit of a fruitcake, isn't he? Like, you know, when I first started flexing him, he ran sideways and acted silly. Even though my hand came off his withers and I had to somewhat release the pressure of the rope, I stayed in position. I kept running beside him. As long as his head tipped towards me, I can outrun him. I can run faster than he can run sideways and faster than he can run backwards. So I'm going to pick up again. Hold it. Now he's pulling on the rope. Now watch. Get ready. He's pulling. He's pulling on it. Get ready. I'm waiting for his to bend his head and neck and create some slack in the rope. He's pulling against it. Now he gave me some slack just then, but his feet were moving. There, that was a good boy. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to keep positioning him on an angle where you guys can see, but if your cameras weren't here, I wouldn't care where he backed. Get ready. Hold it. Get ready. Get ready. See, people think this, there, that was a give. Just because his head is bent does not mean he's given to that pressure. So I'm not asking his nose to touch his belly. I'm just asking for him to understand the concept, which is if I pull, the only way to get off that pressure is to bend your head and neck and create some slack in it. Let me move him away again. 1, 2. And move that front end. Hold it. Wait. There, that was good. And release it. The secret is in the release. Quicker you release that rope, hold it, get ready, there, release it. See how I'm back here near his flank? Slide your hand down. You pull your hand to where the withers joins the back. Get ready, there, release it. So each time I flex him, I'm going to wait till his nose comes round just a little bit further each time. Until eventually, get ready, there, until eventually his nose will touch his belly, but I can't expect him to do it the first 2 flexes. Get ready, nearly a little bit further, hold it, there, release it. The secret's in the release. The quicker you can release that rope, the lighter they get and the quicker they understand. Get ready, He's pulling. Nearly. I'm going to wait a little bit longer. Nearly. There, release it. So he's learning to isolate his head and neck from the rest of his body. There, release. Almost touched his belly, not quite yet. Pick up. Hold it. There, that time he touched and release it. I can't stress enough the importance of letting that rope sag like that, getting that big slack. See how I'm hugging his butt here? The further you are back, the safer you are. Hold it. Waiting for him to give. Wait. There, release. Pick up. Now don't smell my armpit, he's got to smell his own. If he brings his nose up towards your armpit, just wait there. There we go. Good boy. Let their head straighten out for, 5-6 seconds at least. And then slide your hand down and do it again. Let him have some relief by giving. The number one rule, I do the pulling, you do the giving. I pull, you give. The horse is like, no. You pull, I'll pull, you give. No, you misunderstood. I do the pulling, you do the giving. Excellent. So it didn't take long to get him to flex here. Now some horses will take a few minutes, some might take 20-30 minutes. It depends on the individual. Pick up again. Hold it. There, release it. So let's change sides here. He's not perfect at it, but we'll change sides. Fold your lead rope in half. I'm pulling to where the withers would join the back. If I was on that side, where this withers joins the back. Okay? I'm going to pick up. More than likely he's going to back up. He's going to spin around in a circle. Okay? He's not going to give because he doesn't know how. New side, new brain. Okay? He's going to do everything he can to get me to let go of this rope. Well, I'm not going to let go until he stops moving his feet and he softens. Even if he bends and gives, but if his feet are still moving, it doesn't count. Wait for the feet to stop is number one. See how his hindquarters are always stepping away from me? That's why you get back near their butt and you hug their butt. By stepping back towards their hip's always stepping away. Now get ready. Wow, he moved again, didn't he? Hold it. Get ready. You can't see from this angle, unfortunately, but his head is bent. There, he just gave a little bit. So I release it. It was only a teeny little give, but it was still a give. Hold it. See this angle. If he'll stay here, it'll be good. Get ready. He's pulling on me. He's pulling on me. Get ready. He's almost there. He's not really pulling, and he's not really giving either. No, he's pulling. There. Release it. Everybody see how that nose bent a little bit just then? Good one. He's licking his lips, licking his brain. That's good. Come back and do it again. So there's my starting point, isn't it? So I'm going to wait a little bit longer until I can get just a teeny little bit more give. There, that was a bit better. And release it. I love it when that rope's hanging down like that. Big, loose rein. I'm fanatical about lightness on the ground because I'm fanatical about lightness on the saddle. If they're light on the ground, there's a much better, get ready. He actually gave just then, but I was waiting just a little bit longer until he brought that nose round. So every time I flex him, I'm going to wait till that nose comes around just a little bit further each time. Until eventually his nose will touch his belly. See how far back I am? There, release it. Now, of course, they're always going to have one side that's they're better on. They're soft on one side, really stiff on another. That's very common in the beginning. Just because they've caught on really fast one side doesn't mean they're going to do it the other side. It's a separate horse. There. So if you've got a 23-year-old horse you're starting this with, you might just get him to bend to here for the first day. That's plenty. And then 4 days later, he'll touch his belly. So you've got to, you've got to go with what the horse will give you to some degree, okay? A lot of it depends on how old they are, which not so much their age is in physical condition, but is in their mental state. Usually the older horses are, the heavier they've been, because people have been pulling on their mouths for years and the horses learnt to lean against it. Horses get really good at whatever they practice. So if they practice pulling on you, that's what they get good at. Hold it. Oh, that was a really good one. Release it. I love that, him licking his lips. He's telling me he's understanding. I'm going to wait a little bit longer this time. A little bit longer. There, that was it. Almost touched. Slide my hand down. Pull to where the withers joins the back. Notice that I'm not pulling up here, and I'm not pulling back past his hip. I'm pulling right to where that withers joins his back. Glue that hand to his withers. There. Oh, very good. Do this with your baby foals, your weanlings, your yearlings. Wait, I'm going to wait a little bit longer. I'd like to get his nose to touch his belly. Wait. He's really pulling now. There, I release. Sometimes I'll try and touch in here to their shoulder. Don't release it when they come in here. Wait till their nose comes back into here. Sometimes I'll try and stretch it up near your belly. Wait till they come into that, right behind that elbow. He's pulling on me. Now they're very strong, so when they pull against you, like I'm not strong enough. See how he's pulling my arm away? Even though he's pulled my arm away from his withers, he still hasn't won because I haven't dropped the lead rope. I haven't dropped the lead rope. Haven't dropped the lead rope. I keep that pressure there. So ladies, even if you lack a little bit of strength and you've got a big strong horse like he is, don't worry about it. It's not a muscle thing, it's a persistent thing. So even though he straightened his head out, he still didn't win. He only wins if I loosen up the lead rope. I'm not going to loosen up the lead rope until he actually gives to me. There, release it. I'm going to try and turn him so you guys can see. So to me, he seems a little stiffer on this right side than what he does the left. At least at a standstill. In motion, I'd almost say it's the opposite. See how he's got his head tilted like he's shaking water out of his left ear? Like they kind of turn like that. That's very common in the beginning when they're stiff. Don't worry too much about that. They'll come out of that habit by themselves. The softer you get them, they'll quit doing that. It's kind of like a lazy flex. It's like, okay, well, I'll give my nose, but damn it, the ear's not coming. Okay, it's kind of a lazy way of doing it. Get ready, good boy. That was great. Yeah, that was better. So it'll take you a little time in the beginning, but this is the longest it'll ever take. Every tail will be shorter and shorter. Wait. There. Let's go back to this side and see what's going on. Once I've got each side kind of understanding, Then I go back and just change sides 2 or 3 times and just double check it. Sometimes when you give a horse a little rest and you change sides and you come back to the original side, they're a lot better. It's kind of like they've had just a little bit of a chance to digest the thought. There. Now once they understand the concept, you don't have to let them stretch out as long before you flex them again. Because you've already rewarded them by releasing the pressure. A lot heavier on this side, isn't he? There. Okay, so this is a pretty decent lesson. I wouldn't say he's perfect or great, but I wouldn't say, you know, he doesn't understand the lesson. He's a little heavy here. There. So I'm going to spend 2/3 of my time flexing him on the right than what I am the left. So he's obviously a lot softer to the left than the right, at least at a standstill. Going around the lunge line, I thought he was heavier going to the left. So every time I desensitize now, you know how I do a sensitizing exercise and we come back and desensitize? Just before I start the next exercise, I'm going to flex him on 5 times on each side. I'm going to get a habit of that. Flexing him 5 times on each side before I move on to the next exercise. So when he gets really good with the halter, then it's not going to be half as big a deal to do it with the bit. I suspect the most common mistake I see people make is they stand too far forward like this. And then they wonder why the horse bites them on the butt, okay? Or the horse steps on their foot. Put your belly button level with the horse's flank and give the horse plenty of room to bend. And I know it doesn't make sense, but the further back you are, the safer you are, because that hindquarters is always going to step away from you. But when you step up here, they'll step on you with that front foot. So hug the horse's butt with your arm. Good boy. Try to make sure that when you flex, you don't pull up in the air like that. A lot of people pull up in the air, and the problem with this is when the horse gives, you'll be pulling so hard that you'll keep pulling. I want to pull to where the withers joins their back. Right, there's a little circle right in here. Okay, a lot of people will pull in different spots, come right here and then freeze that hand. So if I pull my hand to my to the horse's withers where he joins to this circle, if my rope's too long, I'll just pull it through like that. Okay, I won't let it go and then grab it again, because if I let it go and he's pulling, I'm rewarding him for what? Pulling. I can't stress the importance enough of releasing quickly enough. A lot of people release too slow. In fact, a lot of people release like this. I'll show you. When the horse gives, they just, oh, good boy. And look at the whole time I'm rubbing him, I've still got a hold of the lead rope. That's not a release. That's a release. I'll do it the right way. Flex. The quicker you let that lead rope go, the lighter the horse gets, and the quicker he understands the lesson. Good boy. Try not to get in the habit of pulling the horse's head all the way around. Like a lot of people will really pull in here and make the horse give. I only want to pull his head 3/4 of the way around. The last 3 or 4 inches, I want him to come by himself. So I'm going to pick up. Now I'm just going to wait here. There's about 3 inches there until he touches his belly, and that's up to him to give. If you pull your horse's head all the way around every time, you're always going to have to pull it around. Pick up, wait till there's about 3 or 4 inches left, wait, there, and make him do that. Good boy. When you're first teaching them how to flex, let their head straighten out for a good 5, 6, 7 seconds before you flex them again. Once they understand how to do it, you can release it, sit there for a second, flex them again. But when you're first teaching them, let them have a little rest with their head straight for a few seconds and let them just think about it and then go do it again. If you just release it and then grab it again, you know, there's not enough reward for the horse. At this stage of the game, don't jerk on the halter to get the horse to give. We're in the teaching stage. I'll jerk on the halter later on if I've taught them how to flex and they're not doing it very well or they're not listening enough. But when I'm first teaching them, don't jerk on them and make them give. Just pick up and wait. This is steady pressure, isn't it? I'm waiting for him to give with steady pressure. We'll save the jerking and some of that stuff for a little later on if he's not listening. But the first lesson is a concept lesson. Let the horse understand the lesson. I need to make my idea become his idea. If your horse is moving around, it's very important as best you can to stay in position. A good example of that is when I started flexing him and he took off, didn't he? I had to move my butt and keep up with him. I had to hustle. Okay, now I didn't stay in perfect position, but I was trying my best to get in there. So if you have to run with him. Keep your belly button glued to his flank and get your arm over his hip and really stay in there. Okay, now most horses aren't going to do what he did where he ran away like that, okay? Most horses are just going to stay, spin in a circle or they'll back up. They're not going to really bolt away like he did. But if they do, you better stay glued to them. Try to keep your hand on the same side of the horse's spine you're on. For example, I'm on the left side, so when I slide my hand down and flex, I'm going to keep my hand on this side of the spine. A lot of people get their hand over the back of the horse's back like that, okay? Don't do that. Keep your hand on the same side of the horse's spine as you're on. And wait till he gives now. Wait, there, release it, just like that. Good boy. A lot of people do this mistake, is that the horse will give to the halter, but he's still moving his feet. It doesn't count. Step number 1, stop moving your feet. Step number 2, create some slack in the rope or touch your belly. If the horse does not stop moving his feet, do not release the pressure. Even if he bends around and touches his belly, if his feet are moving, it's void. It does not count. Remember to establish a starting point in the beginning. Don't ask your horse to bend his head all the way around in the first flex. If your horse is really stiff, you might just ask for that much bend. That's it. And then next time you'll ask for just a little bit more. But find a starting point and then build to where his nose comes further and further around. Don't try and just crank his head around because it's not going to work. You can't overpower them. They're too big. Find a starting point, give when he gives to you, keep encouraging that softness, and before you know it, he'll be touching his belly. If when you flex your horse's head and you release that rope and he keeps his head bent, okay, he doesn't do it, but let's just say he did, that's what I call a nice problem to have. I'll just gently push his head back straight. A lot of people complain about that and say, "Man, Clint, he just leaves his head there." That's a lot nicer than just snapping it back as straight as a board. I'd rather have a horse leave his head there and say, "Hey, is it all right? Can I straighten my head out?" And I gently push it back than have him just whip his head back. So that's what I call a nice problem to have. Some horses in the beginning will try to touch their shoulder blade with their nose as opposed to their belly. Don't give in to that. Wait till their nose comes further back towards their belly. It may not touch initially, but it's got to come this direction, not just bury it in here. They'll try and kind of do that. Bring it around more. It's very common in the beginning, of course, for your horse to walk around when you start to flex him. He'll walk in a circle, he'll pivot, he'll run backwards. Some of them will just stand there and just lean on the halter and kind of fall asleep, okay? If they fall asleep, I might bump them with my knee in their belly, but just wait there. It doesn't matter what the horse does, do not release the pressure until he stops moving his feet and he softens. That's all you've got to remember. Outweight him, don't outforce him or outmuscle him, outweight him. Some horses have been stiff for a long time, so they'll just kind of sit there and lean against that halter. You've just got to have your hand like a post and glue it to his withers. If you have to, put two hands on his withers and back here and glue it. And try not to have your hands move if he pulls against you, okay? But just glue that hand there. But the second he gives even a little bit, drop it. And over time, he'll eventually bring his head around further and further. You know, if your horse falls asleep, I mentioned this earlier, and just kind of leans on that halter, don't be frightened to just bump him with your knee under his belly here and wake him up. Or if he is so strong that he jerks your hand off his withers, still keep the pressure on the lead rope. There was a couple of times earlier where Bo really stretched that neck out and I couldn't keep my hand on his withers. And even though he technically had pulled my hand out of position, he hadn't won because I hadn't created any slack in the rope. And eventually he couldn't keep pulling. I got my hand back on the withers, he gave, and I released. So even if they pull your arm, even if a horse straightens his head and neck out and you're pulling on the rope, as long as you don't create slack in it, he did not win. He only wins when you do that, when you drop the rope. You know what horses dream about? Us not pulling on them. So the biggest thing I tell my horse, if you don't want me to pull on you, here's the secret. And he said, anytime I do pull on you, if you just give straight away, I'll quit pulling on you real quick. Some horses will have a tendency to want to nip or bite at their belly when you're going to flex them. Just kind of ignore that. Or sometimes they might try to nip at you a little bit. I'd usually just ignore that too. The reason is most horses are doing that because they're a little bit frustrated. They're frustrated and kind of pissed a little bit because you're asking them to bend and flex. Usually this is your older type of horse that hasn't been soft and supple. He's been really stiff and rigid most of his life. And now all of a sudden you're asking him to bend and flex and he's not a real happy camper about it, okay? Don't make too big of a deal of it. You'll usually find once they get used to flexing, they'll quit doing it by themselves. If they didn't, every time he went to bite, I might move his feet and hustle him and then go and ask him to flex again. But you know, to be honest, 99 times out of 100, they just quit it by themselves. If your horse runs backwards, when you ask him to flex, just walk backwards with him. Do not release the pressure, because if you release the pressure when he backs up, you're teaching him to back up. Horses are great at making you think they're going to do something forever. Like, I can't tell you how many people walk up to me and say, Clinton, my horse will back up forever. No, he might back around the arena 3 times, but that ain't forever. It mentally feels like it's forever, but it ain't forever. Horses are excellent at making us quit first. Or Clinton, my horse will just spin in a circle for days. No, he makes you think he will, but he really won't. If I came out and flexed your horse, he might do it for 5 minutes, he might do it for 10 minutes, but it ain't forever. It feels like it, but it's really not. Wait him out. It's a patience game. Wait him out. Horses are excellent at making us quit first. You've got to be patient and wait for them to give first, and then you reward them for it. Repetition is what it takes to get the horse really light. Again and again and again. Horses learn through repetition, no different to what children do. They've got to hear it and be reminded of it all the time. Just because a horse knows how to flex doesn't mean they're good. You've got to practice it enough to where it becomes second nature for the horse. So again, do it when you put the halter on, do it when just before you take the halter off, do it in between all of your groundwork exercises, until eventually all it takes is 2 fingers. Oh, look how light he's getting. There, good boy. 2 fingers, and that's all it takes to get the horse to give. Most horses, you can get them really soft within about 2 lessons. If they're an older horse in their teen years and they've been stiff for a long time, it might take a week to get them really soft. I think the biggest answer to that question is, how much do you practice? A lot of people don't practice flexing anywhere near enough. The first thing I do when I put a halter on every morning, once I've taught him how to flex, is I flex him 5 times on each side. But the last thing I do before I put the horse away, before I take the halter off in the stall, pasture, doesn't matter where I'm releasing, where I'm letting the horse go, I flex him again 5 times on each side. So the first thing I do when I put a halter on a horse is flex him. It's kind of like, hey, remember, I'm Clinton. I do the pulling, you do the giving. It's like we're shaking hands. Remember, I pull, you give. You with me, Mr. Ed? Good man. Okay? So that's the very first thing I do when I put a halter on. I pull, you give. The very last thing I do before I put him to bed is, remember, I pull, you give. I've never seen a horse give somebody trouble by giving too much. Every single time I've seen a horse give somebody trouble, it's because the horse is pulling and resisting against that pressure. Usually you'll find your hot-blooded horses, as a general rule, I'm not going to say always, will catch on to flexing relatively quickly, okay? Your cold-blooded horses, the lazy type ones, they usually take a little longer to catch on to flexing, and they're usually a little stiffer in the beginning. Not always, of course, but as a general rule. The lazier horses will take a little longer to catch on, but once they understand, they very rarely forget. The hot-blooded horses will catch on to an exercise really quick, but they're just as goofy, they forget it 3 minutes later as well. So, you know, pros and cons, it really just depends on the individual as far as how they've been ridden and how much they've been taught to pull on the pressure. Horses by nature are bred to pull against pressure. If a lion grabs him around the head with his claws, the horse's reactive nature is to pull against it. When that halter grabs him behind the halter, behind his ears, what's his natural reaction? Is to pull against it. I need his reaction to be that. Good boy. Good boy. There. I actually like what just happened then. When I reached up and grabbed that halter the first time, I expected him to throw his head up and really overreact because I just reached up and tugged down, didn't I? But he kind of leant against it, but did you notice that he didn't freak out? That's a good sign. That's telling me that he's using that thinking side. Let's do it again. Oh, I like that a lot. He didn't initially give, but he didn't throw his head up, and then all of a sudden he dropped that head down. You want to teach that horse to lower, there, I love that. Lower that head to that pressure. So instead of him overreacting to the halter, isn't it funny, just by doing that flexing, he got a lot better about giving to that halter, didn't he? Good boy. Excellent.